Take you now to the Western Cape, speaking of the southern parts, and to Athi Mtongana, who is tracking the results from that province for us. And Athi, the DA in an incredibly comfortable position this afternoon at 55.1%. I don't have the number in front of me, but it does look like the Western Cape has done some good work insofar as counting is concerned. 76% complete of the voting districts.
Indeed, Michelle, but they have now increased the number of completed VDs. They are standing well over 80%. So it tells you that they are really nearing up that final number of 100%. And as you correctly put it, the Democratic Alliance leading in this particular province, they're sitting well over 50%. Let me just quickly read some of the numbers for the Democratic Alliance in terms of the votes that they've garnered at this stage. They have over 800 votes here in the Western Cape, and they are followed by the African National Congress. Also trailing behind is the Patriotic Alliance, like I've been saying throughout when the results started trickling in. The Patriotic Alliance also following right behind it, well over 100,000. But talking about the Democratic Alliance having maintained or actually getting to that 50%, which many political parties, opposition parties here in the Western Cape have actually been saying that they want to see the DA going below 50%. Let's talk to a political analyst, Mr. Daniel Silke. Thank you so much for your time. The rhetoric here by many opposition parties that they wanted to see the DA go below 50%, but what we're seeing insofar as the numbers is actually not what they had expected.
Yeah, I think in the Western Cape, voters rewarded relatively good governance, and they rewarded the consistency of the administration here in this particular province over the temptation to vote for smaller or other political parties. And I think where the DA promised to deliver better than other administrations in other parts of the countries, voters largely have voted with their feet on this particular issue. Had they been dissatisfied, they wouldn't necessarily have voted in the way that they have done for the DA. So it is a reward, I think, for the premiership of Alan Winde. It also shows how difficult it's been for the other parties to make any kind of dent in the DA, despite using aspects of ethnic division, despite using for the ANC the issue of Gaza-Palestine as a potential rallying cry. These are messages that didn't resonate to any great degree with the electorate here.
But let's talk about the Patriotic Alliance then, because they're trailing behind at number 3. The DA, although it lost some of the areas around the Western Cape and the rural parts, they seem to have gotten those people back into their backing, taking back from the Patriotic Alliance, despite them coming up as the third.
Yeah, look, I think the Patriotic Alliance made a good showing, given that they're a relatively young political party. They will be a player, certainly in parts of the Western Cape. And I think it does offer them an entree, obviously, into the provincial legislature as well as a result. So this is a party that the DA is going to have to battle in future. In fact, the Patriotic Alliance may become even more significant, frankly, than the ANC in terms of being contesting the DA in future for leadership. But they're a very long way at the moment. And for the Patriotic Alliance, it's a new party. They will also have to remain consistently on message. Their party will have to remain cohesive. The DA has a longer track record, and that plays into its strengths.
I mean, you can't talk about the Western Cape without mentioning the coloured population, which is the majority. Talk to us about the Triple C.
Yeah, the Triple C also, managed to score beyond what many other smaller parties failed to do. And I think there is a degree, and it's in general in South Africa, a degree of identity politics creeping back into our political lexicon. It's not just an MK issue in KwaZulu-Natal. It's certainly been amongst parts of the coloured community here in the Western Cape. But I think when the full analysis is done, the DA, as a sort of relatively broad church political party, will still enjoy by far the majority of coloured voters within the Western Cape, alongside certainly the majority of white voters as well, and perhaps even a modicum of increase amongst black voters, although relatively small.
Is it surprising that the MK is present here in these elections? I mean, even though the numbers are not as significant as what we're seeing nationally and even in KZN, but to even have a presence here and have people go out to actually vote for Umkhonto weSizwe?
Yeah, I think it's relatively insignificant, to be honest, in the Western Cape. They might appear as one of the smaller parties to get votes, but they will not have any dramatic impact, at least. And I think also, once we've done the analysis, we may well find that MK support predominantly ethnically based or predominantly Zulu based, and of course that doesn't play in the Western Cape composition of our demographics.
Let's talk about quickly the Freedom Front Plus as well as the Good Party. Many would have imagined that the Freedom Front Plus would have grown, but the numbers are not looking so great. Some going as far as to say those who had taken their support from the DA to the Freedom Front Plus are back into the DA.
Yeah, I think the DA had a very successful message towards the end of this campaign, which was to squeeze the smaller parties, the smaller competitors for a similar vote out of the political equation by telling voters, don't waste your vote on a smaller party. And I think those Freedom Front Plus voters ultimately bought again into the fact that their interests would be better served by voting for a larger party. So we've seen some modicum of that, perhaps white Afrikaans support shift back to the DA. And again, not just in the Western Cape, we might well see that in other parts of the country as well. For Good, I think Good has got lost in the broader competitive terrain with all of these new political parties. And on that basis, Good was unable to perform to any degree in this election.
The Referendum Party?
Well, again, there were all those who said, well, the Western Cape is potentially on a roll for some sort of independence. We've seen independence and referenda party, as it was this year, try each successive election to gain traction. It's not an idea that's going to gain traction in the Western Cape. I still think that the DA will want to devolve power. They want more federal powers here in the Western Cape, but there is no political appetite amongst the electorate, broadly speaking, in the Western Cape for the notion of an independent Cape country.
All right, thank you so much. We'll leave it there for now. Daniel Silke giving us some analysis on the political parties that are contesting in the Western Cape as we sit at 80% of VDs that have been counted at the stage, with the DA leading the charts.